I know this is in the middle of the season. I don't know how comfortable you are as a coach addressing the media in the middle of the season, because in other sports, a lot of people don't really like talking to us because we end up asking them some annoying questions about what they plan to do with their teams. But
Yeah.
how is it going? You had your first game yesterday. It was had its difficulties, and you were quite candid about it after the game as well. So, what was that experience like for you yesterday?
Yeah, it was tough. Being a coach and losing hurts much more than being a player losing. I don't know why, but that's the sense I get so far as a coach. I felt like our team played really well. I think we beat them in most of the statistical categories as far as attack, block. I'm not sure as far as serve and reception statistics. That's still waiting to be seen, but I think we outperformed them in most areas of the game. It's just we came up short in these crucial moments. In the
Yeah.
first set, we had a huge lead. They got a super serve. We called our super point. They ended up getting a trickle ace over the net, which is just really unfortunate. That kind of
Yeah.
set the tone for the rest of the match. You could see our guys were a bit deflated. Like when you feel like you have something in your hands and it slips through, it's just like kind of crushing and debilitating to a team. So the positives were is that we made a lot of changes. We made 12 players played last night, which
Mhm.
normally when 12 players play, you've lost the match. But those guys that came in, they won the last two sets and they really made a huge impact on our team. So for me as a coach to see those guys how hard they've worked and then to get a shot to prove themselves and show their talent was great.
Perfect. So you transitioning as a coach is a very interesting thing for us, because we could see how helpless you were on the sidelines. There were
Yeah.
there were times when things were happening and you were just clutching your head and walking back, and you didn't know what to do. Did
Yeah.
you ever have the itch to just get into the court and just do it on your own?
No, my players are better than me for sure, especially at my
How
current
did you
training
do
level.
that when you did
Uh,
decide to coach, right? Like when you started moving from player to coach, especially with this setup, how difficult is that? Especially when you're like a player like you are yourself, how difficult is that transition?
it's not easy, and I do miss it a lot, to be honest. I spent so many hours in the gym, and I do miss playing a lot. I miss being because as a player, you can do a lot. As a coach, you can do more for sure as far as how trainings run, but as a player, you can bring an energy and an intensity to a training that I think sometimes we lack. And I, even during the game, I'm trying to yell to the team and talk to them, but it's very loud in there. So it's hard to get any true communication other than during timeouts. And then you have, 30 seconds to 75 seconds. So it's been a difficult transition. I do miss it because I still kind of play volleyball competitively on the beach.
Hmm.
So coming to the indoor side, I knew this year would probably be my year to hang it up and just become a coach. I mean, I'm turning 41 next month, and that's a very old indoor player. There's not many guys that continue to perform that late in the year, especially middle blockers. It's a hard surface and it beats up the body. So I'm happy to take my role as a coach and try to teach these guys as much as I know about the game.
Hmm. All right. So we know you are obviously one of the very established players in the sport. You have Olympic medals to your name. Just to go back to the basics, can you just take us quickly through just your journey in volleyball? What made you take it up? Where did this
Yeah, I mean,
even start in the first place?
yeah, it started. I was 14 years old, and I was playing outside on this like asphalt court at my local middle school, and they were probably playing like 12 players on 12 players. We were playing rules that it basically had zero rules. I was blocking serves, and I was just kind of excelling because I was extra tall. And I think the sport of volleyball and basketball, they kind of push you in this direction. So I played all types of sports growing up, from basketball, American football, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, track and field, and volleyball. So I was in all types of sports. And when I was 15, 16 years old, I played for a club called Seaside Volleyball Club in San Diego. And it's like an elite group of kids from that city. And we traveled throughout the country playing in regional tournaments, trying to win a national championship. And when you start doing that, you start to be seen by university teams. And that's when I started getting letters from colleges saying, hey, we'd like to give you a scholarship, come here and play. And then I had my first junior national team tryout my senior year in high school, and I was 18 years old, and I got selected to this team. Like I had this tryout. I'm like, man, I just played. I was really like, I'm a fairly humble guy, but I was like a young kid, and I was like, man, I played really well. Like maybe I made this team. And then like a month later, I'm in Cuba playing against like the Cuban, Canadian, like Dominican national team. And that was what kind of started my journey into that pipeline of becoming USA athlete. And then when I was a sophomore in college, I played in the World University Games, and that was my first multi-sport event. And that
Mhm.
event, what was like the total catalyst of why I became like an Olympian. Just that energy of having like athletes, elite athletes from all over the world, having an opening ceremonies and having like this huge, I don't know, sport display is something I really liked. And I was like, man, this is so much fun. This is all I want to do. And the purity of the sport at that time, being a youngster, was so different than what it became like later on when you started doing it for a living and for a job. I still love it equally, but it was just a special time in my life to be like a young kid and just only representing your country, and that's all you wanted to do. And then when I was saw a senior in college, it was 2004, and it was the Athens Olympics. I had just graduated. I was pretty young, and I wasn't that good, to be honest, at the time. I was decent, but a good college player, but I wasn't ready for the Olympics. So I didn't get selected for that national team. And I went to play in Puerto Rico and Portugal and Indonesia. So I took 3 contracts my first year overseas. That summer in 2005, the national team called me, said, come for a tryout, see how you do. And I got in the gym and I started this grinding. It took me like 2 years, like head down, just like there was a lot of seniority on that team at the time, and I was young, so I really had to prove myself above and beyond. And finally, in 2007, I became a starter, a full-time starter. I kind of split time in 2006. 2007, I started, and I continued to start for the rest of my career until 2016, where I finished as the captain of the team. So yeah, I had 3 full Olympics, won the gold in 2008, which was surreal because I was so young. I was 26. I was only 3 years in with the national team, and I was on this really experienced team. And I was just like, that's all we do at USA is win gold medals. Like it's so easy.
Yeah.
Like I kept going back 2012. I thought we could do it again. Team wasn't that good. We ended up finishing fifth, and then my last chance was 2016. And we took a bronze, which was nice to go out on the podium, but I really wanted another gold. But it's a
Yes.
very difficult thing, especially in volley. Like we're not the most dominant team in the world. USA is like always in the top 5, but there's other teams that consistently perform better, like the Brazilian national team, the Russians, the Polish. There's a lot of very good teams. France just won it recently, which was kind of a fluke. So you're seeing some of these European teams put together great squads, but it's yeah, the sport's growing. It's getting better around the world.
Fair enough. So you really come off as somebody who's very competitive. I don't think you let losses go easy, do you?
Uh I've lost so much in my life. Like I've learned to be a loser, which is like the weirdest thing to say, like, or how to get past losses quickly. And I think what we do here, what we just did before we talk to you, is we watch video, you identify all the problems, and then you try to remedy those problems during training. And so for me, it's like, yeah, what happened happened. Are there regrets? Are there things we could have done? What I could have done as a coach, for sure, to change that situation. But that's just a part of the learning curve, and we're going to take what we can from this game and just move on as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
And I think my guys get that too. It's the first game. Yeah, you lose matches. Like this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's just the first match. Like we have time to improve. We have time to get better. So yeah.
So you played a huge list of sports, right? A lot of them actually feature in the Olympics as well. Now, you told me obviously what point turned you to volleyball in a sense to take it up full time and to sort of dedicate your life to it. But if you ever had to take up any of the other sports, right? If it had to be anything else but volleyball, what would it have been?
It was I was really on a pipeline to play basketball in college. Like I had college scholarships to play basketball, and I had a basketball coach in high school. Those were my 2 primary sports I really focused on later on as I became like 16 and above. And I started to drop some of the other ones that weren't, something I really wanted to do. But the basketball coach in my high school like tried to get me to quit volleyball. He's like, you have to dedicate to this sport and this sport only. I was like, I'm not doing it. Like I love playing volleyball. I love the people involved. I love my team. Like there's no way I'm going to stop doing this. And so he's like, okay, well, I can't cut you because like we need you. Like you're one of our star players. So I continued to play both. And I kind of entertained the idea of becoming a basketball player, but I knew that my chances to be an Olympian, and I knew that my uh, goals and the people I wanted to be around in life were in the sport of volleyball and not in
But
basketball.
wouldn't basketball have been the most successful option in terms of just how much exposure is
For
there or how
sure.
much money
For
is there?
Yeah. For money, I mean, if you can go NBA early on, like it's a no brainer. I just didn't. I was a center in high school, and I was kind of undersized, and I hadn't fully like became this as big as I am now. If I knew I was going to be like, I could get up to 240, 250 and jump high, like I would have continued to play basketball probably. But at the time, I was like tall and skinny, and like it wasn't the right frame for a center, and I wasn't a great shooter, so I couldn't play like small forward. So I was like a center, and
Mhm.
I had sharp elbows. I was good like rebounding and doing everything else, but
Yeah.
it wasn't my path. But
Fair
outside of that, any other sport I could choose, I would be a professional surfer if I could. But there's no surfer over like there's like one surfer over 6 feet tall. They're all like small gymnasts that can do flips.
enough. Yeah. Do you
Yeah, but
surf?
that's
Surf
I
like a
do.
lot.
That's where most of my time spent. It's like beach volleyball, surfing, diving are like my three main hobbies. And then I do some outdoorsy stuff. Like I try to go into the mountains as much as I can.
Oh, nice. I was just gonna ask you, so you're a beach person, not a mountains person. You
I'm
just
I'm
answered.
a beach guy and I need the ocean for sure. But any chance I get, we go to the mountains. We have the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. And it's like a 5, 6 hour drive, and you're in like 12, 13,000 foot peaks. We have a few 14ers down there too, but like it's just beautiful. There's glacial lakes, there's tons of fish. I go up there and we do backpacking, trout fish, and just like kind of hang
Nice.
out. Yeah, it's kind of where I,
That
I
sounds very
recharge.
peaceful.
Like every time I make those trips, we try to do like at least like 2 to 3, if not more, per year.
Hmm. Fair enough. So before we digress, this coach who asked you to drop volleyball, maybe to pursue basketball, what did they have to say when you won your Olympic medals?
The assistant coach for
Back
that
in.
team, yeah, the assistant coach for that team reached out. The head coach I didn't really have any relations with afterwards, but the assistant was just like really just proud. He's like, man, good choice. You made the right decision. Like,
When you were standing on that podium, did you think, now I've shown you I deserve to be here?
I had no, I'm not a big like, yeah, I don't, yeah, I would never hold that type of grudge on somebody. It's like it was in one ear out the other. He's like, you got to quit playing volleyball. I'm like, yeah, good luck, coach.
Fair enough. All right. So you were speaking about how a lot of the things depend on how you come back and check what your team has performed like, what you could have done better as a coach, right? Now, can
Mm.
you tell me how different that introspection process is for you from being a player to now being a coach? What especially what happened last night when you went back to the room? What did you end up doing? How did you look back at that game? How did you analyze your own sort of role in that game? Can you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually should be a little more introspective on my own role. I have looked at that. I have like one note that's like dedicated to coaching, and like it's literally turned into this like massive amount of data. And so I'm just writing like my thoughts and feelings after these games and where we could improve, where I can improve. And yeah, as a player, it's more just like you're a little bit more concerned about your own performance and where you could have been better. But as a coach, you're looking at the performance of, 12, 14 players, and then also how you're choosing to put those players in the game, when you're choosing to call timeouts, when you're choosing to call these super points, and when you're choosing to call reviews. There was a moment last night in the third set where we served the ball out, and I'm pretty sure it's out, confidently out, but we had a review left, and that could
Yeah.
have been a chance because we basically at that point lost the match. So there's no reason for us to have even kept that review. I'm
Mm.
90% sure the ball's out, but still, why not give that review a chance? And
Yeah.
so that was one of the things I think about right now. Some of the super point calls when the score is 11-11, something I think about a lot too. Um, Whereas if you lose that point at 11-11, the other team goes past to 12, and then you have the ability to call the super point. So there's some weird ones there. There's another one with the serve. We were kind of choosing to use one server to call the super point, and I think looking back, I should have chosen a different server. Um, but we were also trying to look at like once they pass 12 is kind of our thing. Like once they get past 12, then we look to call super points so they can't counteract that super point. I don't know. There's a lot of strategy involved, and like it's a lot of risk. And it's like when you take that risk, and is that risk really worth the reward, or should you just play straight up volleyball as long as you can?
Right, fair enough. Is there a sense of pressure for you in coaching this team when you're playing against you're playing in front of your home crowd also, so to speak? So
Yeah, I mean, there's always pressure in sports. I mean, I think the athletes feel way more pressure than I do, honestly. Um, but yeah, I mean, I try to instill as much, wisdom and knowledge as I can. I really wanted to make them feel comfortable and confident and like honestly trust the training we've been doing. We've tried to like make them more consistent in their actions, but sometimes during the game, guys feel a little bit different. Some of those nerves start to hit them, and they start
Mhm.
to change what they've been doing, naturally for the last month or even years. and they kind of revert back to this very cautious and fearful way of playing. And I really stress, like, man, you can make mistakes. I want you to feel comfortable making mistakes. But we do put some constraints on them as far as what the goals they try to reach, how efficient they're supposed to be in certain skills. But I don't know, as a coach, I think about that a lot as far as, like, do they feel safe in this environment? Am I making them nervous? Am I putting too much pressure and stress on them? But we're trying to make it as safe of a space as possible for them to learn and get better.
Right, fair enough. I'm glad you touched up on the whole nervousness thing, right? Because you spoke about this yesterday as well after the game was done, about just the lights and everything just sort of taking the players by surprise, perhaps, just the environment of it. Has that been something that you discussed with the boys in the run up to this opener?
Yes. And I'm not going to name any names, but we definitely have one player who there's always something that's like an external factor of why you don't perform. And it's been crushing them. I don't know how to teach him or like make him understand that, hey, everyone's dealing with these same things. Like, you have to be able to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, you have to learn how to like thrive in situations where everything isn't perfect. And
Mhm.
that's been a real struggle for me. Because it seems like a very attentive student, and then he just kind of goes back to the same, like, I don't know. I feel like extreme ownership in sports and in life in general is a very important thing for us. Like, to be a bit selfless and take a lot of responsibility for your actions and others.
Are you a kind of a perfectionist? Do you need to get things right, and until then
No,
you keep working at it, or what's your process like?
no, I think there's a right way to do things, and I like to hammer that home. There's many. I mean, I think there's a right way, a million ways to do things. I just think there's more efficient and effective ways to train and to teach, and to get everyone to buy into that is pretty important. I'm not a perfectionist by any means. I understand that this is a game of errors. Like, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but
Hmm.
how do you deal with this error? How do you internalize it? How do you learn from that as quickly and as efficiently as possible? And when I first started, I was trying to put them in drills for them to kind of come to some of these conclusions themselves, like almost learn throughout the drill. Like, oh, we're going to put these certain constraints on the drill, and then you're going to have to figure out a way to beat it. But as the first few days went on, we didn't have much time. We had like 3.5 weeks of training camp, so it's like we really had to go to a coaching style of just telling them exactly what's expected in every scenario and every situation, and try to do it that way, as opposed to like, let's see if you can learn how to beat this game or learn how to. I think that is a better way to teach people. I think it sticks with them longer, but we don't have time for that. It's more of just like, this is the way things are done, do it this way.
Hmm. Fair enough. Did you ever reach out to any of your coaches or anybody you know in the coaching circle when you decided to become one yourself?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I went and interviewed like a few of my friends that are head coaches now, and kind of just like had a list of questions for them to kind of figure out where they're coming from. One of those guys, actually, in the interview I did with him, just gave me a book from the coach I won a gold medal with, Hugh McCutcheon. He gave me his book, and Hugh McCutcheon is probably the coach that I emulate the most. Not only because we won a gold medal, but also because of the way he coached. I thought it was very good. And so I'm reading his book now as I coach this team, and a lot of the stuff I coach is honestly based off that book. And I haven't told him that yet, but I will. I'm still like 50 pages out from finishing, but yeah, he's been a big influence on my life. I mean, I've had a ton of great coaches, and I've definitely cherry picked the information from them and put it into my own style. Uh, yeah, but I mean, yeah, I've definitely reached out to a lot of people and tried to get as many opinions as possible.
Right. And how does your family sort of fit into all of this? Obviously, they've been following your career all along. Do they also call you and tell you, maybe you should have done this, maybe this should have been done?
The wife, for sure. The wife's like a volleyball player as well. Like, she was a collegiate volleyball player for University of Louisiana Lafayette. Got a scholarship there. She's actually from Romania. That's why her name's similar to yours.
Yeah.
But she's definitely like, yeah, she knows the game pretty well, and so we talk about it. My mom's just kind of like, "Good job, you won 2 sets." I'm like, "No, we lost the match." It's like, don't try to
Mom,
find positive in this.
mom. Fair
Uh,
enough. That's nice, isn't it? Is it good to have that support system back at home as well? Or do you sometimes feel like, okay, I just need to think about anything besides volleyball for maybe just 20 to 30 minutes? Do you ever have such phases?
No, I think it's really nice to bounce ideas off as many people as possible that are willing to listen. Like, I think it's great. The more I can talk about it, the better it is, the more different perspectives I can get. I mean, whether I choose to, take that information as something I put forward or not, it's up to me. But I love having more opinions. The more information I can get, the better. But yeah, volleyball is on my mind a lot. Recently, I've been trying to take an hour here and there to listen to a podcast or something else just to kind of get away from it, which is nice.
Hmm. What do you
But
like listening to?
right now, I listen to Lex Friedman and Joe Rogan are the two
Uh-huh.
guys. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
not bad. Not
yeah. That
bad.
and
Do you ever
David.
do music,
Yeah.
books? You ever
Uh,
do any of that to relax?
Say it again. Books.
Do you ever do music and books or anything like that? I know you're reading your coach's book, but anything
Yeah,
besides
yeah.
that?
I would say me and the assistant coach are kind of like the team DJs. Like I brought a small speaker, and so we played music
Oh,
like before pre-practice, and obviously going to and from the arena.
not bad. So what's on your playlist then for the team?
It's all over the place. There's one Spotify playlist called Tantra that I listen to, which is kind of like this weird, like it's like a real minimal style, like electric music,
Okay.
electronic music. Sometimes I'll play some Mac Miller. Last night the assistant was playing Queen the whole way home, which was great because the guys love singing along to Queen.
Mhm.
A lot of cool Indian music today at the weight room. Some like I don't know any of the names of the songs, so if
Yeah.
Sarang unmute himself, he can tell you.
Fair enough. All right. Now, you've obviously been in the position of being a foreign player in this league, right? In a lot of senses, does that give you a sort of perspective on how to make life maybe a little more comfortable for the other guys who now come in from other countries? Does that stick out to you as a priority?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I've tried to tell them as much as possible. Like, 'cause a lot of them are concerned about the food. Like, hey, is it spicy? Like, is it going to be too hot? Like, the food is
How do
delicious,
you
man.
handle it? Are you used to it
Oh,
yet?
I love it. I love it. I mean, it's one of the main factors of me coming here. Like, my food in the States is pretty not bland, but it's pretty cut and dry. It's like functional eating. It's not for
Yeah.
pleasure. Here, it's like you have this like a rainbow goes in your mouth every time you go eat. It's like this crazy, crazy different like
Not bad. You're the
taste.
first person from outside the country who said, I come here back here for the food. Everyone else is just having tears. It's too spicy for me. I'm not able to deal with it. I'm not
That's
able to pronounce the food that I'm eating. Not
yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah. No, I don't mind. I'm a big fan of like Mexican food. We live really close to the border, and so like
Yeah.
some of my favorite food is Mexican, and that's pretty spicy too. Not as quite as spicy as Indian, but it gets up there. No, as a coach, I want to make sure the guys are comfortable here, and I ask them all the time. I'm like, man, is there anything you need? Like, ask this team. Our team's really well staffed, and they take good care of us. So, like, if they need anything to be more comfortable, they can do it. Obviously, they're very far from home, and they have to be good at assimilating and conforming to a new strategy and a new lifestyle and a new team very quickly. And I think that's what makes good foreign players special is that they can come into a team and adapt very fast. And yeah, that's something I did very well as a player. I mean, I played, I don't even know how many years, 18 years overseas in every different country. And like every year you have to uproot, find a new team, and then like make friends and be successful with that team. And so, yeah, I think that's something some of these guys we have now are pretty young, the foreigners, and that they could do a better job at as far as like taking in the culture. I mean, they've done a pretty good job, but there's some things that uh, stick out to me that they could change, but it's hard to change a, a personality trait in like 3 weeks. Like some of this stuff is like ingrained in culture for
Well,
for.
I'm glad you brought that up as well because in sports across the world now, there's this conversation about psychologists coming in and mental health support being given to players for whatever reason. It could just be anxiety, or it could be staying away from home, practicing, or, like maybe plying your trade in countries where you're completely far away from your family. How
Yeah,
does that sort of factor in when you handle a team? I know you're doing a lot of that yourself. You're reaching out to the players as per what you've told us,
yeah.
but how does just that fit into your strategy?
For this amount of time and this duration, it really doesn't because it is so short. And I think we all should be able to handle, 6 weeks away from home or 2 months. I think where I've seen a lot of my friends struggle is when they go overseas for 9 months in countries that are somewhat inhospitable. They struggle. But it takes a special person to be, to do this job and leave your family and to continue to travel the world. It's not that easy. I mean, I
Yeah.
put my life on hold until I was 40. I got married last year, and that was kind of the easier out for me. I mean, guys do it. They go overseas, they bring their family, they bring their kids. It's a hard thing to do though. It puts a lot of stress on your family.
Mhm.
So it doesn't really enter into my my mind right now. These guys are young. They're like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, fair enough. But in your case itself, David, there is a certain impermanence, right? Like what you were saying, you have to uproot your life, go to another place, play in another country, then maybe next year it's another country, it's another
Yeah.
setup. Has there ever been a point where you've just been like, okay, this is getting a little hard for me. What am I supposed to do? Have you had
Yeah,
those phases?
yeah, that happened in 2019. That was basically when I came to India because like I just had finished a season in Argentina. I did 5 months in Argentina. That was like my last full pro season. I think it's 2018. And yeah, we won a championship. I was like, that was great. Like I'm happy leaving it like that. The team asked me to come back the next year, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to keep going. And I went home and I started dating my wife, my current wife.
Mhm.
And she was like, I don't want to do this if you keep traveling as well. I'm like, I don't really want to travel anymore. And India popped up in 2019, and it was like this perfect scenario where it's like a 2 month engagement. You can go play volleyball, and it can be something that's, yeah, worthwhile for both parties. And I was like, man, this sounds like the perfect gig for me right now. I still want to play, but I want to do it in this fashion where it's not crushing my body and crushing my soul to be away from family and friends forever. So I started doing the Indian thing, and that was kind of like the end of my, worldwide travel. And so now we travel domestically most of the time because I feel like I know less of my own country than I know of the rest of the world.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a nice thing. We've been doing a lot of road trips in the States and yeah, just traveling in our backyard, which is beautiful as well.
That's lovely. Now, obviously, you've traveled the world, you've seen a lot of systems and a lot of volleyball cultures around the world, right? How do you rate USA where in comparison to everything else? How are the systems like? What are the playing talents like? Where do you think the US ranks right now?
It's very good. I mean, there's been a history. We've had a long history, which I think aids to their success. They've been on the podium from since '84 Olympics, in '88, and then back in 2008. So there's been this like great system in place of really intelligent people that have created these systems for a long time and tried to implement them into the university systems as well. And so
Mhm.
now our reach and our web of coaching and clinics throughout the US is pretty good. And they're all kind of teaching a very progressive way to play. And they're always looking for ways to continue to tweak that. A lot of it's done through statistical analysis, a lot of it's done through scouting. But they're very high up on the list. The only downside to USA Volleyball is we don't have a lot of funding for universities because of Title IX sports.
Mhm.
American football has a lot of players that get full ride scholarships. And so to equal that out, there has to be an equal number of women's scholarships to men's. So women's volleyball is huge in the US. We have
Yeah.
1,000 schools that give out full ride scholarships, where for men's volleyball, we have 25 that give four full ride scholarships that have to be divvied up between the athletes. So it's really hard for us to attract talented players. We have very talented players. We've actually done a lot of recruiting from European players that have come to our league. And
Yeah.
it's something I kind of want to stress to these guys here in India, like some of the young university guys, if they are into being students, they can come to the States. And I think it would be good for volleyball as a whole in India just to see some of these players as they come back from this university system. Because our
Mhm.
university system in volleyball is very, very strong and they have very professional coaches. Um, but yeah, I see the States as ranking as one of the top three volleyball nations in the world outside
Mhm.
of Brazil, Italy, Poland, Russia, they're all kind of basically even as far as what they do.
Right. Fair enough. So, as a final question, I see you need to be somewhere else. So, I'm just
Oh,
gonna wrap up with this one with this one thing. I think I've taken about 15, 20, 30 minutes of your time. I don't
yeah,
know if you
sorry,
have
I talked
anything else
a lot
lined
more
up.
than I do. Yeah.
Fair enough. But either way, David, I will wrap up with this. I know you said you have a book of notes where you're sort of taking down what you're doing as a coach, right? So before you came in to this season of PVL, did you have, apart from winning the trophy, that is, did you have any other things that you had on your checklist that when I finish the season, I need to be this, or I should have accomplished one, two, three? Do you have a list
Mm.
like that?
With this team,
Yeah, with this team as a coach personally, anyway.
oh, interesting. As a coach personally, no, it's kind of like I have an overall mission for this team, and I have a way to get there, and I have like some bullet points I think we need to be doing. And I think we've reached some of those. Like we have my main thing with this team was like I want a decent ball control team when it comes to service and reception. If we
Mhm.
have those two things on our side, we can be competitive against any team here. The things we kind of lack, one of the things we've gotten much better at is blocking for sure. We've implemented a different system with 3-man blocking, which doesn't really happen here. And I think the guys have taken to it and they can see the effectiveness of it. But the defensive side is something I still struggle with. I'm not sure how to get them better at defense. A lot of guys are used to playing volleyball outdoors on surfaces that aren't great, so they don't feel like they could dive or throw their body on the line without being, beat up by rocks or getting dirty or whatever else.
Right.
So a lot of them lack this skill of like being able to dive and to roll, and that's where we miss a lot of defensive balls. So if I could get them playing a defense 10% better than they are now, we would be in really good shape. And I think we probably would have won last night if we could have picked up 2 of the easy balls that we should have. But yeah, other than that, I mean, the biggest goal here is like we want to be successful. We want to win a championship, and that's all we have on our mind. Is the first step to make playoffs? Yes. Is the next step to win the championship? Yes. I don't think it's a goal that's out of our reach. I know all these teams are strong, and I know that this league is sometimes a bit of a fluke with who wins and loses. It's not always the best team that wins or the best team on paper that day. It can be a team that that's what makes it exciting too. It's like you can underdogs can beat better teams. So for me as a coach, it's just I hope I leave here with these guys understanding a bit more about what I came from, how we do it in the States, and I hope they can take some of that and kind of like bring it back to their other teams and kind of spread that knowledge. What else do I hope? I hope I leave just with them, like, just feeling good about the work they put in and that they actually got better during their time with me.
That's perfect. I hope all of this comes true. Good luck with the season, David. Hopefully, we'll see you at a match and then maybe catch up with you about everything else that you're managing to do. All the
So,
very best. I hope this season goes really
Avante,
well.
thank you. Seriously.